being here tonight. This is an exciting time for all of us. I know September 1st was it was new just because of the recruiting legislation that came out, and it kind of changed all of our worlds a little bit. But congratulations to each and every one of you. You're certainly on the right path. I want to offer a number of things tonight. I think there's, in the recruiting process, the one thing that I will not be able to provide for all of you is just the right answer that's going to cover or blanket everyone sitting in this room. I know sometimes that's kind of the search. Well, can you kind of tell me what I can do, tell me what the process is going to be like, tell me what the journey's like, and I can say this to you unequivocally, it's going to be different for every one of you. So don't look around at someone else and think that because that's the journey that they're going on, that's the right journey, the appropriate journey for you. It may be completely different. Feel comfortable with that, and take the journey that you think is going to be in the best interest of you, your family, and your son's future. The next thing I would say is just ask your son, is this something that he wants to do, or is this your dream and your belief that going off and playing a Division III, Division II, or Division I sport is what he should be doing? Because there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. Do I think it's a job? No. Do I think it takes up a lot of your time? Certainly it does. But I think if the onus goes on to your son, is this something that you want to do? Do you want to be a part of a collegiate team when you get to that point? Then the onus comes on, then there's some ownership in that. And then the work starts right there. And this is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about. A lot of work goes into that through your high school career before you get there. The harder you work, the more time and effort you put into this, the easier the journey is going to be for you. The more transparent the journey becomes for you. The less you work, the more complicated you make it in the classroom, on the field, the more gray everything becomes. And then the last thing I'll talk about just before I start getting into this is I have a family of 3 daughters. My wife and I have 3 daughters at home, and one is a senior. She goes to a place called Kimball Union Academy. It's a prep school up in New Hampshire. I have a junior who's a junior, at State College High School, in State College, and they both went through the recruiting process at the same time this past year. The senior being maybe just a little bit late, the junior maybe a little bit on the front end. Both of them played field hockey and lacrosse, and both of them are going to go to school to play field hockey. One at James Madison and one at Penn State. And I can tell you this, from the perspective that I had, I recognized and realized how little I knew about the recruiting process from the other end. And man, did I learn a lot about what it was like to be in your seat right now. There's a great deal of empathy, but there's a great deal of excitement for you, for what you're about to go through, and the journey that you're about to travel. So enjoy it. I would just say enjoy it. There were certainly some stressful times, and a lot of moments where there was not a whole lot of clarity, but as I look back now as a parent, just like you, the one thing that I would say is that's part of the journey. It will be a part of everyone's journey. You'll go through some frustrating times, you'll go through some times that there's just not going to be a black and white response about what exactly should be done at that time frame. But that is when you add the human element in it, yourself, your son, and then a collegiate, coaching staff. When you have a human element in there, it tends to just take on a different side. It's less science and more art. So let's jump into this. I want to just talk about a few things that I think you guys should be doing depending on what grade you're in. There is something for us called the Eligibility Center. When you get into your high school year, I think one of the things that I would ask, if you feel like I'm going to have a chance to do this, I'm going to go attempt to try to play at the collegiate level. If I were to go back and counsel, we have a 12-year-old back at home, we'll do the same thing with her. Make sure you go in there and have a conversation with your guidance office as soon as they get into the high school, and just make sure you're taking classes that are going to be NCAA eligible. That's the first thing you want to do. Make sure that the classes that you take, hey, there is a chance, because of their connection with athletics, that we're going to go into this, that you want to be into those grades and have those kinds of classes offered, and make sure that that is a part of it. And then when you become a sophomore, that's when you want to start taking some of those transcripts and actually quantifying that in the Eligibility Center itself, and you want to sign up for this. So there is a website. I know there's handouts that we would be able to provide for you, but I would say go on to the NCAA site, and sign yourself up. You will need a certificate number, an eligibility center number, in order to do a number of things, all which will be important to you in terms of taking official visits, in terms of being able to sign a national letter of intent, and for Division I even to be eligible. So those are the things that I would do in my freshman year and sophomore year. Become a junior and senior. Again, stay in contact with both the coaching staff and your guidance office. Everything that you have from that point on, SATs, ACTs, transcripts, should continue to be uploaded into the NCAA site so that the NCAA can continue to counsel you in terms of what you need and what is needed of you at each particular school. Some schools don't require SATs, ACTs, but everyone is the same in terms of being in Division I, of having to have the same core courses, having the same qualifications of a GPA and an SAT to be qualified to even compete at the Division I level. So I would just say through those collegiate years, stay in touch with the guidance counselor. Make sure you get onto that eligibility center. That website will be listed on that film. It is a $90 charge, but everyone needs to do it at our level. Prior to September 1st now of your junior year, prior to September 1st of a prospect's junior year, what can you do and what can't you do? This is a change for you guys, honestly, to just prepare yourself. The rules changed and have changed for the better to allow us to have a little bit more time to watch you grow, but also to grow yourself. I would say that there's so many camps and clinics and opportunities for you to go to showcase yourself as players. But I think what most kids need more of, especially at this time before your September 1st year, and certainly after that, is growth and development. Take the time to work on your skills, take the time to make sure that you're prepared in the classroom, take the time so that on September 1st, you're in a good place, to be where you want to be with some of the college coaches that may reach out to you at that particular moment. But from the parents' perspective, what can and can't you do? There can be no exchange of any communication at a Division I level with any parent or any prospect at that point. Can't email you back, can't text you back, can't answer phone calls, and can't do any of those things to you or your family. Can't call you, can't email you, can't text you in any capacity. The only thing that we can do, the only thing that we're allowed to do that you may receive if you're a freshman or a sophomore, is we can send out any camp invites, any of our prospect or instructional camps, and we can send out generic or general information that the university makes. So if you get a regular university brochure, we can do that. So at that point, if you send us an email, and you're a sophomore right now, and the coaching staff doesn't respond to you at the Division I level, don't be discouraged. Please just understand that we can't do that. If you send us a text or call us and we don't pick up or we don't respond to the text, please don't be discouraged. Please know that we just can't respond to any of that until September 1st. So, September 1st, it was, this is a brand new world for us. This is the way we used to be, probably around, I would say 7 or 8 years ago. Just, it was the first day of calling. It was back in July. Back then, July 1st is when we first started making some of these phone calls. Prior to some of the quote-unquote early commitments that were being made in the sophomore class, that was a pretty drastic change. And then the freshman class, some kids started committing. And then in the 8th grade class, we had some young men committed. And then the change got so drastic that both the men's and the women's coaches associations decided that we were going to get together and change this thing back to a September 1 deadline. So what's September 1st going to be like? What an exciting time frame it was for us, and I know what an exciting time frame it was for the guys that were receiving phone calls. But it also can be a really discouraging time too. You get all your hopes set up into that first phone call. Here comes September 1st, and then the phone doesn't ring. And I would just say, man, that's the first day. That is the first day, and you got 2 years in front of you to decide what you want to do on that crossroad to make this happen. So on September 1st, what can we do? We can make phone calls. We can call you on September 1st, we can text you on September 1st, we can email you on September 1st, we can send all kinds of information to you, as long as it abides by the NCAA rule, and we can do that every single day. Right? It might sound exciting, but sometimes that gets pretty anxious as well. and it turns it into some real challenging times for young men who are also trying to handle the grades, try to do well and continue to grow in their high school sports and enjoy their high school time and career. So just be prepared for it, but don't be discouraged or too encouraged at any level. Just keep a good perspective at that point. Unofficial visits and official visits. At that point, September 1st of your junior year, you can start to go on campus. Universities and colleges can go talk to coaches. You can go on colleges and universities anytime before September 1st your junior year. You just can't talk to the coaches. So a phone call to the coaches, hey, I'm going to be here before September 1st of my junior year. Well, yeah, we can't have any contact with you. Can't say hello, can't shake your hand, can't do any of that. After September 1st, you can go to as many colleges as you want. Go up and meet with the coaches, as long as it's agreeable with both sides, and walk around campus, get a tour, meet some of the players, do some of the stuff that we'd be able to do with you on that campus, and that's unlimited. Anytime you want to go to any campus around the country, you can go back to that same campus 2 or 3 times, as long as they don't pay for anything for you or your son or your family other than 3 complimentary tickets to any game on campus other than the playoffs. Any playoff game does not count. So you can go up and do that anytime. You want to go up and watch a football game, go up and watch a basketball hockey game, you can do that anytime, and they can provide any of that stuff for you, unofficially. The other side of that is an official visit. And this is the kind of stuff I'll talk about in a little bit in terms of how you know things are progressing to the next level. Official visits is when we invite you up and we decide, hey, we're going to pay for any or all of it. If we pay for 1 milkshake, or we pay for your hotel room, or your mileage, or your tickets, or anything that goes on in entertainment during that time for you and your family, that becomes an official visit. From September 1st of your junior year until the time you graduate, you get 5 official visits, where any of that compensation comes from the institution to you and your family. You get 5 official visits, but you can only use 1 at any institution. So if you're coming up to your junior year, you can choose, but you and the coaching staff have to choose. Do you want to do that during your junior year, or do you want to wait until your senior year? And you can certainly ask the coaching staff if they're willing to do that. The coaching staff has the right to say not yet, or not at this time, or they can choose to bring you and your family up to pay for any of those options. But those are your limits there. And again, this is more of the science of this, the rules that we have to follow with the NCAAs. And then the last part of the visit is you get 48 hours on campus if you go up for the official visit. 48 hours, you get 2 nights, and then you have to be off campus. Some of the other things that I think are just more of general hints. So this is less the science, less the rules, maybe just some of the stuff that goes into this. So maybe not black and white, maybe some of the stuff that you have questions about. Should I or should I do this? Should I or should I not do this? When it comes to highlight films, my suggestion is a lot of this stuff depends on where you stand in the pecking order. Like if you're a blue chip lacrosse player, you're one of the top 100, as it's ranked out there, or you just happen to be one of the top 100 or top 50, maybe having a highlight film isn't necessary. People will come out and they'll watch you play. You got a lot of notoriety about what you do, so maybe you don't need to have that highlight film. But if you do decide to do this, especially the lower you may go on that pecking order, or the more you want to be seen because of the more remote, maybe for you guys here in and around the Philadelphia area, you're seen constantly through some of the best club teams in the country. But having a highlight film so that you can impress upon the coaching staff that maybe didn't see you or didn't see you at your best. Maybe we came out and saw you for a 20-minute half or just for 1 game. Maybe that highlight film is important for most of you. So is it important? Maybe some of that depends on where you stand or how much somebody happened to see you play or where things are in the recruiting process. But I would advise if you do decide to make it, you can spend as much or as little as you want. You want some quality within the highlight film. It makes it much easier for us to watch. Do you need to spend thousands of dollars? Probably not. But you want to have it so that there's clarity. Like if you're sending it from mom or dad's cell phone during the course of a club game and we're trying to figure out what number you are or where you're standing, that's probably not going to be all that effective, and it's probably a big waste of your time. So there are tons of services out there that you can probably get a great product. Some of them come through some of the tournaments that are out there that constantly ask you if you're willing to spend an extra, whatever it might be. You have to ask yourself, within the course of your recruiting, is it worthy to have something like that? And I would say, if you're not in that top 50 or top 100, maybe that is a good thing for you to have, just in case somebody asks for it. Put it on YouTube, and any time that you have interest or express interest, we would go to the YouTube site, find out, just put your name in there with Cross, and it'll pop up. Gives us a great reference point. Make an impression right off the bat. Make an impression right off the bat. Don't wait to have a big build-up or crescendo at the end of this highlight film and then expect that we're going to be there after 5 or 6 minutes of it. If you don't catch our attention right off the bat, maybe put your best highlights right in the beginning. Your best should be the first one that we see. Because if that catches my attention or anyone's attention in the college lacrosse world, man, we're going to keep watching that. So just make sure you have a good impression. Music does help, depending on what kind of music taste you have, so just be careful who you're sending it to. I want to find out what kind of music they listen to. Highlight clips are definitely, I would say the majority of coaches' preference. To watch a full game is good. Some people may ask for that from your high school coach or from your club coach, but I would just say let that happen kind of organically. Let's make sure those highlight clips are on there. And I would say just keep it within, I would say probably about 4 or 5 minutes. That would be a long highlight film. And make sure we know where you are and what number you are. You know, the ones with the circles or the shades, those are extremely helpful before the play comes, especially if you can do that a little bit more professionally. If you can't, just make sure we know what number you're wearing and there's clarity in where you're running around once you're out there. The emails, if you are going to send emails, this is just a personal take. Emails are tough because you just get so many of them as college coaches, especially during the recruiting periods of November and the summertime, but they don't hurt. They don't hurt. I would still encourage you to send them out there. Somewhere in the subject line, tell us who you are, what class are you, what position do you play. Somewhere in the subject line, tell us who you are, what class you are, what position you play. And then keep it brief down in the email. We want to be able to move in there and find out who you are, maybe a couple of bullet points, maybe about where you're going to be if you're playing in any club tournaments, November or the summer, or maybe even in your spring. And if you have something that stands out, put that in there as well. Some people put highlight films in there, transcripts in there. I think some of that stuff depends on where you are in the recruiting process. But you just want someone to catch their attention to find out where you're going to be, so that they, find a focus or put their eyes on either your club coach, ask a little bit more, or during a tournament, you have a number to circle that. If I go out and watch you play, maybe I circle your number just to take a quick peek, because in 20 minutes, man, that's tough to watch 20 guys play. And if you have nothing to go on, then we're just relying on just that particular moment. Are you going to provide that spark at that particular moment? So if you're going to send emails, do that. Make sure you just send out one per coach instead of 30 emails with all of our names on them. Just, this is a personal opinion. It goes over much greater if it's just to me or just to a specific coach. That doesn't mean we won't recruit you if there's 30 schools on there. It just means it definitely is more meaningful. It would be like us sending it to 100 people and having all your names on there. So do that in reverse. Make sure the school is correct and the name is spelled correctly. Make sure the high school or the school that you sent it to is spelled correctly. Make sure it's the right school. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten Johns Hopkins or Dave Petramala or Coach Myers. We'd really like to come to Ohio State, and then we'll forward those on to those coaches and make sure they get a good glance in there. And I get it through my daughters. We did the same thing, and we were just cut and paste and make sure that these things are there. It takes some time, and it's good exercise, but discipline is required. And make sure that you do it to the best of your ability, because again, that's your first impression. That's your first impression. And if that's your first impression, and you go on there and it's not a very good one, that doesn't mean you can't recover. Again, if you're a blue chip, you're going to recover just fine. Just fine. But maybe you're not at that level, and you need every advantage that you can get. So I would just say that if you're going to do this, take some time to do it and do it well. The recruiting cycles, there's really 3 recruiting cycles. You're in one right now, the November cycle. The November cycle is, it's hit or miss a little bit. I would just say this is a tough one. I have my personal opinion on this one. Anytime you can go out and be seen and just love the game of lacrosse, you want to go and you want to go out and play, I would encourage you to do that. I would just make sure that if you're a young man and you're out there in these club tournaments, just make sure you're 100% locked in and sold on doing this. Getting out there and getting yourself a good night's sleep, having a great meal the night before or the week leading up to this, hydrate properly before you go out there. I think it's frustrating at times, and I've done it as a father and as a coach. No matter what cycle it is, we're in the November recruiting cycle, and it's a little bit cooler or colder, and maybe you haven't had the stick in your hands for the last 2 months because you play soccer or you play football. But honestly, that's just on you. So if you play football or soccer, can you get out on Sunday and just play catch for a little bit? That might help. Just constant with the repetition. And you also have a choice. You have a choice to make about how well you're going to be prepared coming into some of these events. So when you come out to these November events, we can come out in November as Division I coaches and only in November watch lacrosse games. Can't do it in October, can't do it in September. We can watch football games, we can watch soccer games, but the only time that we can watch lacrosse games is in the weekends in November outside of Thanksgiving. So this year there happens to be 4, because the first week of November was the second, third, so now there's 4 weekends. Typically there are 3. We can come out and watch you play. And you have to ask yourself in 3 opportunities, if one college coach was given 30 minutes to come out and watch you play, would you be prepared to make the most of that opportunity? And you have to figure that every time your feet cross that line, that is your chance. And if you view that as that's your only chance, you have to ask yourself, how would you compete? How would you play? Part of the issue is you get dozens of opportunities. You get hundreds of games in the summertime. It's amazing how much you guys all play in the summertime, to a point where I believe it's actually non-conducive. It's not conducive for your own love or passion for the game, and maybe not even for your own health. But I would say that when you're doing this, don't take it for granted. Whether you play 100 times or 1 time, make that 1 time you compete and play the very best of you. Give us a chance to see the very best of you. How much or how hard are you willing to compete on that moment? I would just say, if you're going to spend the time and money, and I was a part of the club scene, I've been a part of it my whole life as a coach, sitting on the sidelines, we get those chairs over there and just nestle in there and watch you guys compete, play. And more agonizing as a parent, watching my daughters play in the lacrosse and field hockey, and that's much tougher to be the parent over there sitting down there than it is to be the young student athlete going out there and having fun. And I watch how they prepare, and I would just say, man, if you have one chance, please, if you want the recruiting process to be black and white, to be very transparent, you go out there and do everything you can to make an impression within the framework of your team. And make that thing count. Every second that you put yourself on that field. Don't take it for granted. Spring season, we can't come out and watch you play. If you play, especially here in Philly, you might get local teams coming out and watch you play. That's awesome. For most of you guys, it's a little bit more challenging for certain teams that have to travel hours that we're in our own season and practicing. But teams can come out and watch you play. You never know when someone's sitting up in the stands watching you. Whether you're on the sidelines, what do you look like? Are you a committed teammate? You doing your part on the sidelines of pat guys on the back when they're coming off the field, or are you on the field playing as hard as you can? Whether the score's 20-1 or it's a great game tied 10-10. You come out there and want to watch that young man play, what do you look like? What kind of a teammate are you? What kind of a player are you? We want to see everything. So just recognize and understand that when you're in your spring season, every opportunity also matters. They're all open events. So someone might be sitting up in the stands, whether you know it or not. And then the summertime as well. And again, I go back to that summer. It's unlimited evaluations, and you guys play 100 times over the course of the summer. Budget and balance your time through the course of the summer to make sure that you are, in fact, giving your best. Because if you're exhausted playing on the one day that one of us comes out to watch you play, that may not be the end-all, be-all, but that's all we have to go off. So when you call us and you email me and say, this is what I want to look for, and this is where I want to be, did you see that game? I'm going to say, I did see that game. And the impression may not be all that favorable. So take advantage of all of them. Take advantage of all of them. The November events, go out there and have fun. We recognize that some of you guys are multi-sport athletes, which is great. Make sure the club coaches communicate that. So that we recognize that you may not have had the chance to continue that transition from your spring, summer into fall. But have fun with that, and do what you're doing out there. If you love it, if you don't love it, don't go out there and play. And this spring season, just recognize that that's your time to go have fun, but you never know when someone's going to be out there. Club teams and high school teams, I would just say this is more to the parents, just make sure that you recognize what your expectations are. Like when you're going into to play with Dukes, or you're going with an NXT, like what's your expectation? So you should have that answer, in my opinion, before you enter into an agreement about what it means to be a part of that team. Hey, what's playing time going to be like? What do I get? What's the value of this? I'm going to give you $100 to be a part of this team. What's my value? Does this mean you talk to club or college coaches? Do you give them the opportunity to find out kind of after games, will you contact or reach out to these guys for us? Do we sit down and have a meeting with you about who we are, about where you would put us? Just make sure you have those, because if the expectations are, hey, look, we're going to try to win. We're going to try to win every tournament, and your son may not play, and you just dropped $100 in the course of the summer, and your son's sitting on the bench and not playing. But the club coach said, hey, that's the deal here, then that's fair. That's fair for the club coach to do that. But if the expectation is, hey, look, you're going to play 50% of that game, make sure you know that, so that there's no frustration, so that you're not sitting on the sidelines counting a stopwatch wondering why your kid's not playing half the game. If that's not the expectation, then that's not fair for you to do that to your club coach. But if you recognize that everyone's going to get quote-unquote equal playing time or a more competitive environment, and you agree to that, then that's a pretty good expectation for me. Or if you know you're going to play in 3 tournaments or 5 tournaments, or you got to travel or don't have to travel, or whatever the case may be, just find out what's in it for you, and then ask what's going to be in it from me. And if you do both sides before you enter into that agreement, these club things are phenomenal. It takes up a lot of your time. It could be so much fun traveling around with other parents, going to places. And maybe college coaches see you play, maybe they don't. Because there's plenty of tournaments that there's 50, 70, 80 coaches sitting up along that sidelines watching your son play. But there's also some tournaments that there will be no coaches anywhere near that field. And as long as you understand that, going into that, that's fine. The frustration happens when the expectations are different than the reality, because you didn't figure that out before you went. So I would just say make sure you sit down and talk to those club coaches and do that. The other thing is, ask them where you stand at the end. Ask their opinion. But also expect the truth. And then you have to just decide whether or not you want to buy into it or not. I think you're a Division I player, top 5 kind of a player, top 10 kind of a player, Big Ten ACC kind of a player. Okay, that's great. You know what, I think you're maybe 20 through 50. I don't know if that's true quite your league. I think you're a different kind of a player, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's great. And the truth is what you want. You want the truth. You don't want something that's going to be about it. You want the truth. You want a good match, because if you get the truth, that fit is going to be exactly what you want. And there's no demerit for Division I, 2, or 3. I was a Division III player, and there's some phenomenal players that are playing in Division III that would be just as good as any player on our roster. Right now, regardless of the division, it's about fit. Do you want a smaller campus versus a bigger campus? How much of time or investment do you want to make in the fall and the winter for Division I versus Division III? Again, that has zero to do with talent. So some of this, I can probably, based on what you're telling me, more Division III, that's not talent-based. That's your interest and passion based on what you're telling them you want to be a part of. And they work really hard down there as well. But figure out what's the best fit. And I would have those conversations. I think that's a fair expectation to have with your club coaches. And I think the clubs around here do it as good as anyone in the country. This is, and I would say this, and I do say this everywhere I go, the clubs in this community, in and around this town, around Philadelphia, around the city of Philadelphia, do it as well as anyone in the country. I think they're competitive, but I think they're fair. And I think from a coach's perspective, man, do we just get honesty back from that? That does not necessarily mean that they're going to tell us that you belong at our particular institution or any other institution. They're going to tell us whether they think you fit or not. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want someone telling us that you fit and then you come and then you don't fit, because that's when the trouble. It may be a great celebration that night or for the rest of that month or the rest of that year, but the next 4 years are the ones that you're going to struggle with the most. So just make sure you get into that for all the right reasons. So types of recruiting opportunities that are out there, there's a lot of things that you can do, how to differentiate. Should I take instructional camps, prospect camps, go out with my club team, go out with my high school team, go to the individual showcase. And I would just say, what is it that you're looking for? Instructional camps give you a chance to grow. Don't stop growing. Like, there's got to be a growth mindset. It's one of the biggest things that most of us as college coaches look for. Is he continuing to grow? Is this all about you just getting recruited so you can say that's where you're going to go, or is it about you getting better? So sometimes the tournaments just allow you to play games. When do you work on your own skills? Working on defending the goal line, or shooting more, playing goalie, or facing off. When do you do that? So the instructional camps, I know it's a little bit of a thing to pass. We get the majority of our kids maybe in that middle school age, but don't sleep on those instructional camps. A chance to get better. Maybe not get recruited at that level, but man, if somebody comes up there and they show if they want to just get better every single year, they're willing to come up and do 9 or 10 sessions in the heat and do skills and drills, and that says a lot about that young man and that growth. The prospect camps, for us, for my dollar, this is one of the best ones, because it just gets you in front of that particular staff. But I would just say this. You do this when you get to the point where you think, man, there's 4 or 5 schools on my list, or types of schools that I want to look at. Make sure you know what college coach is going to be there. You get on college campuses. Sometimes they'll talk about their core values. Sometimes they'll show you some of their facilities. It's usually more limited in numbers. You can find out usually right on it what it's limited to, what the age bracket is. But I think prospect camps put you right in front of those college coaches, especially at an institution. So if you think, man, that's the school for me, I'm going to look at the prospect camp. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to play my tail off, and I'm going to make an impression. That's a phenomenal opportunity. It may not get you 50 college coaches to watch, but if you like a particular school or a handful of schools, I would definitely take advantage of the prospect camps. Now, sometimes people send out prospect camp stuff all the time, and it's like, is this real? Is it not real? Like, if you think that school is important to you, whether it's real or not, you go up there and make an impression, it's going to become real. But there are a lot of them definitely that are looking for the almighty dollar, and they'll send it out to everyone. Talk to your club coaches or high school coaches to find out which ones they think are actually real. Or, if you're a prospect age, call the coach and say, I got this invite. Are you interested in me if I come up there and compete and play, or is this an opportunity to get a pool of players? That's actually a welcome conversation, and you should do that. You have just as much right to ask them the same questions that they're asking of you, and that's not completely foreign. And if somebody takes offense to that, you know that's probably not the institution that you want to go to. Hey, look, I'm about to drop $250 and come up here with my family. Is there a realistic chance? Doesn't mean you'll get recruited, but is there a realistic chance? Where did you see him play? Tell me what you thought of him. And if they're like, well, then you can move on. Decide to spend your $250 elsewhere. Or if you think I'm going to go up there and I'm going to change his opinion, you can do that as well. Club tournaments, high school showcases, those are great. You're in the comfort of your own system, so we watch you play as long as the expectations are there. I think those are great opportunities. And the individual showcases are also good. Depends on what you want. If you feel like, man, I am just better if I could just kind of play off and just do my own thing. I'm a better dodger if I could just run down the alley and everyone just gets out of my way. I'm not big into the system that we're running in high school or in the clubs. I can be great if we just go out there and put the ball and put it in my stick and go. Or defensively, you're just the kind of guy that just wants to go out and knock the ball on the ground. And at the club level or high school, they don't allow that. Go to an individual showcase. Some of the showcases become very frustrating for some. Just keep in mind that everyone else out there with the same priority and the same objective to impress the guys that are sitting on the sidelines. So you may or may not get the ball or may not be able to highlight yourself as much or as little as you'd like. But keep in mind that that's part of those camps. And the clubs and the high schools, just make sure that you're doing everything you can to recognize what's going to be expected of you, but what you can expect from them before you go out there. Because you can spend a lot of time in the car and in hotels and go out there in a lot of these tournaments and never see any coaches. So just pick and choose wisely before you go into these tournaments to make sure that you pick what's in the best interest of you. Just great advice for each and every any one of you. Run your own race. Again, I started this conversation with this is going to be different for everyone. Like if you look at the quote-unquote blue chip, and quite honestly, we do not pay much attention to the rankings. The rankings tell us who's great or who is perceived to be very talented, I should say, right now. And the job of all college coaches is to predict who's going to be very talented and contribute to your program 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now. So don't get caught up in it. But what I would say is that, those guys are up there for a reason. And if you're in that top 50 or blue chip, the timeline or that race or journey is probably going to happen fairly quickly, or it has a chance to, and you are in much more or better control of that. College coaches are going to reach out, they're going to provide you opportunities for visits, opportunities for scholarships, opportunities for places on team, and that's great. Keep in mind that's about 2% of the lacrosse playing, or maybe even 1% of the lacrosse playing world of the 11th and 12th graders. So if you're in that group, it's already going to be guided for you. People are going to be calling you, and you're going to be picking and choosing what schools you want to visit because they're all being offered you. But for the majority of us, that's not how it works. That's not the reality of recruiting. But if someone next to you or your high school team that you go to is getting into that, you're thinking, well, why is it happening to him? They must not have seen me, or my club coaches aren't highlighting me, or am I doing something wrong? Well, no, your journey is different. And embrace that. Have just as much fun with that journey as he's having with his journey. Because he's got complications and frustrations just like you. Maybe the choices are more vast, or they come quicker, or maybe there's more pressure to make some decisions in that one. So just embrace who you are. Put yourself in your own silo and ask what is it that you and your family want to do? What's in the best of your interest? So if you're in that next tier, probably a little bit kind of a balancing act. You probably get some phone calls on September 1st, so much fun. Pick and choose. Maybe you didn't get the ones that you wanted to. Maybe there are some in there. You can choose if you want to hold on, if you want to take a visit. But again, it will be guided a lot by the college coaches inviting you, and the schedule that you can afford to go up there as a family. You can make some of those decisions. If you're outside of that, maybe you're a late bloomer. Some of the greatest players I coached at Cornell, Rob Pennell was one. After his senior year, we recruited him. Chris Sabia from Haverford. After his senior year, we recruited him. Some of the best players we coached were actually, and I say late bloomers, they actually bloomed on time. They developed as young men on time. And we just had opportunities available for them, and other people did as well. So maybe you just stay patient through the process. You run your own race. Continue to keep plodding ahead. Continue to keep working. Show some perseverance. Show some determination. That's life. It's not woe is me. If you want to continue to do this, keep grinding. I would just say this. The difference between blue chip and that next tier and the third tier is the involvement from you. So the blue chippers probably don't need a whole lot of involvement from families. You don't need highlight films. Parents don't need to reach out. You're going to get all kinds of attention. We'll call club coaches. We'll call you. We'll send you letters. We'll do all this. The next two tiers, parents, time for you to start digging in. Young men who want to be recruited, time for you to start digging in. Maybe you start doing the research. Maybe you start making the phone calls. Maybe you start trying to get out in front of some of these college coaches. It does require a lot more work depending on where you fit. And I would just say this to you. The majority, probably 85% of all prospects fall into that range. That range where it just requires a little bit of a balancing act, where you're going to have to put a little bit more time and effort into the process. And that's just what it's all about. It's not becoming a helicopter parent by getting involved in the process. You're actually doing what you should do as a parent. Your son, you get involved in a location that you think is in the best interest of his life or his journey. Now, if you move into the dorm room when he moves in up to college, that might be considered a little bit of a helicopter parent, but get involved and don't be afraid to get involved into that. You know, parents will tell you, or coaches will tell you, hey, look, you're overstepping your bounds. But I would say that there's a lot of times when most coaches want you to be involved because we want to find out what you're about as well. This is a family decision. So I just say keep that in mind. There are some gray areas down there, but most of you are going to fall into that. How do you know when things start to be picking up? So like, how do I know this process? I mean, it's fairly straightforward. One phone call doesn't necessarily mean you're being recruited. It just means we want to find out what you're all about. Are you interested? What kind of schools are you interested in? What kind of a young man are you? Don't get caught up in that. That doesn't mean we're going to recruit you. It just means we're interested in learning a little bit more about you. If we don't call you on September 1st, that doesn't mean we're not going to recruit you. Because there's plenty of opportunities. I just showed you all those opportunities in November, spring, summer. Take advantage of them when they happen. But how do you know when things start to speed up? If you start to get multiple phone calls, start to get excited, because now we're starting to get excited ourselves. And maybe we want to learn a little bit more about you and your family. That's fun. Get that second and third phone call. Things are starting to pick up some traction. If you get offered a visit, unofficial or official, starting to get a little bit more interested and excited. Keep in mind that those things do not mean that we're going to offer you a spot on the team. But it also doesn't mean that you have to choose us either. So if you come up for a visit, you don't have to choose us. You choose to come up and learn more about us. And if we choose to invite you to school, it doesn't mean we're going to choose you. We just choose to learn more about you. And that's how the process should work. So keep that in mind too, the expectation of what a visit means. I'm going to drive 6 hours and spend $1,000 to go up and talk with them and go to a football game. Yeah, if you think that's in your best interest, do that. And if at the end of the visit we say, just not our fit, that's fair. And if you say, just not the place for me, that's also fair. But how do you know when it's picking up when some of these things start happening? So if that happens, congratulations, good for you. I hope it happens to every one of you at some level, whatever level. Go find your best fit, but I hope it does. And then if you're offered a scholarship or an opportunity on a team, and that's when you know you're getting close to being able to partner with a school or find out what you got going on. So what are some coaches looking for? I would just say this, everyone's looking for something a little bit different. So we come out to watch you guys play. Everything's a little bit different. What we see in summer, so I'll sit down there with 10 coaches and even my own staff. We'll see some people out there, you know, one of my coaches might say, yeah, I thought he was fantastic. You know, he's got 3 stars next to his name. And I thought, man, I thought he was very average. And the beauty or fit is in the eye of the beholder. So if you go out to see someone play and you say, man, well, how was that guy? That attacker, that defenseman getting all these phone calls. When I'm the guy on the team. And I would just say that you just got to continue to keep grinding, continue to keep playing, do your thing. Do your thing. Do your thing as best as you can. And somebody's going to watch you someday, I hope. Somebody's going to watch you someday and say, that guy right there, he's for me. That's the guy that fits into our system. And every other college coach on the sideline may say, what? And I say, yeah, that guy fits our system. And then we have a criteria that we use in terms of what we think is in our best interest or our best fit. And it's the same thing that you should do when it comes to us. Sometimes our school isn't a great fit for other people because of size, because of distance, because of whatever. And that's the same thing that we're both going to do. My advice, my wife and I had advice for our kids, 2 things that we felt were the most important thing. Number 1, find a great mentor. Find a coach that believes in you. That's going to go up there and that you can trust, that will inspire you to do great things. Someone who just truly believes in you, doesn't feel like they got to change who you are. They're just going to try to inspire you. This is your dream. Try to inspire you and give you lessons in terms of how to get there. And 2, does it fit? Does it feel right? And that's what we're trying to figure out too. Those are the 2 things that we thought. So after we see on the field, if we feel like that's the guy that fits. He's got good talent. We call the club coaches, find out if there's some good things that are going on there in terms of how hard they're willing to work. What kind of a teammate are they? Is there a decent chance in terms of, is this the kind of school that they want? And then we bring you up for those visits. So other things, and this is not just exclusive to us, this is just got to be kind of a generic recruiting talk here. Nothing about what we do, about what we do in general. But we want to find out what kind of a worker you are, what kind of a teammate you are, what kind of passion you have. And we would say this at any level, Division 2, 3, or 1. You want to love the game. That's what my first thing was. Is this something that you want to do? Do you really want to do this? Because you're going to take a lot of time. Put a helmet on, go lift weights. Thank gosh that all the lifting and running wasn't around when I played, because there's a lot of that going on right now. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to do this? So we want to find out, are you committed to this? Are you passionate about the game? Do you only play when the club coaches or high school coaches ask you to do this, or are you out on your own doing this? Man, that's a huge connector to most college coaches, that young man, he wants to play. And then I would say the last one of all these things that are up here is he willing to compete? Is he willing to compete? Is he different when college coaches put their chair on the sidelines? Is he playing for us, or is he playing for his team? Because at the end of the day, we want guys who are willing to play for their team. Because if you play for us during the high school or club or summer or November tournaments, then who are you going to play for once we get you on our team? Compete for your team. Do your best you during those tournaments, and then that will give us a chance to get the best recognition on what you're going to be about. And this is kind of some of the art of it. We talked about the science, some of the things that are fact. This is some of the art of it. And that's why I say the art of this recruiting is just, it's not definitive, it's not exact. Tell me how it's going to go. Well, it's tough to tell each person, other than the fact that the NCAA requires this, and these are the rules, those are the scientific pieces. The other part is, let's develop a relationship. So I say the second part of this is the parents. Like, what are you looking for? Same thing you should look for in your club coaches, you should look for in college coaches. This is your greatest asset in life. This is your pride and joy. And we recognize this. If you're looking for someone to help develop your son through his collegiate years, that's all you can ask for. Go find someone that's willing to partner with you and also play it's a game. It is a game. I need to remind myself at that time, try not to take myself too serious. You're coaching the game of lacrosse. But if you can, as a parent, help your son, guide them to just pick a school where you feel his best interest is going to be in mind. Not because of the flashy uniforms or flashy facilities, but can you see dropping your son off at that institution, turning your back and feeling comfortable of leaving them with that coaching staff and those young men? And if the answer is yes, don't worry so much about the number one team in the country, or Division 1, 2, and 3. Turn and get back in your car and feel wonderful that as a parent you did everything you could to move them on to that next level of their journey. But trust. Get to that point where you trust the college coaches enough to then let them do their job. And if it's about playing time or only about scholarship, some schools will probably be welcoming that, and some schools won't. If it's about partnering, if you're doing a great job of working together through the game of lacrosse to prepare your son to be the greatest version of himself, prepare for the professional world, in his life as a father, as a husband, and as a professional, those are great expectations. And that's what we should expect from college coaches when you go up there. And I think that's what the college process and the search should all be about, rather than facilities, number ones and number twos. There is a great website out there, the niche website. I think if you're looking to compare schools, it's an easy way to start this process. Just compare these things. My brother actually brought it on to me. His son is still grinding, and my nephew's still grinding as a senior, still looking for a place right now. But I think this is a phenomenal website to get yourself out there. Gives you some great insight on where they just rank schools, what certain students at certain schools are saying about their own institution. Anything from the food, to the social life, to the athletics, the majors, how they rank in certain criteria. You can pretty much find anything, the cost. In this site, I thought it was an easy way. This is kind of a personal, not a professional, but a personal way to get up there and just start looking at schools and doing some research on your own. I thought that was a great website. So my last piece of advice, and I appreciate your patience through the whole thing, is enjoy the journey. Just enjoy it. Will there be some frustrations? Well, yeah, this is a pretty big decision that you're making. But step back every once in a while and figure out, man, how lucky am I? If even one college coach reaches out to you and says, man, we would love for you to be a part of our team, how lucky am I? All the hard work that you put into that. Prepare yourself so that you can get to that point, but enjoy it. I wish I did a little bit more. I mean, I can't say that my wife and I and our daughters enjoyed it as much as we probably should have, but step back and enjoy it. Be honest. Be honest with who you are. And make sure that is portrayed to the coaches. Be honest with us as coaches, and hopefully you can expect the exact same from us. If you lie and tell me that you're a little bit of X and a little bit of Y, you're not that, and then you come to school, then that's when trouble starts. But if you come and give us the exact, then yeah, this is exactly who we are, which is what you should expect from us. This is who we are. Your guarantees that you're going to work hard every day, and you choose to do this, yeah, then it really becomes fun. So just be totally honest, because what you want is you want someone to believe you for you. Not who you'd like to be, but who you are. And then together you grow. And then dream big, but be realistic. Be realistic. There's only 45 spots on every team. Be realistic, you can't fit everybody on one team or another. Plenty of great schools out there in all divisions, and then best of luck. I can't wait to come out there. I'm going to be watching probably every one of you over the next 2 or 3 years, and I can't wait. I love what I do. I'm so passionate about coaching and developing young men. I live the dream in terms of what I want to do. I would ask you to do the same thing. If you want to do this, pour your heart and soul into it. Don't worry about what another guy's doing. It's okay. It's cool to work as hard as you can, to invest in your nutrition, your hydration, to go to bed early, to put yourself in a position to say, that's my dream. I want to go play at the best Division I, 2, or 3 school in the country, and then attack it. Attack it. I don't care what anybody else says. Anyone on your team, club team, high school team, you go do that. If that's your dream, you go do that. And if you do that, I can't promise anything, but your dreams will come true because people will come back after you based on the product that you put on the field. So, well, I know we're going to take questions and answers after we're done here, but thank you so much for your patience and good luck to everyone.
That's great. Thank you so much, Coach. We want everybody to have, obviously, a perspective. You know, Coach Tambroni, his NCAA rules, a lot of that stuff is very specific to Division I, as he was saying. That'll be the path, obviously, for some of you, and some of you might choose to play Division II, III, or club. And so I want to introduce Gary Mercandante, Coach. Played his college lacrosse at Dickinson College. Then was an assistant there, I believe, for 4 years, and then got his first head coaching job at Delville, and did a great job there. That when the opportunity for the head coach Ursinus opened up, he went back, and this past year won the Centennial Conference in his first year as the head coach at Ursinus. And for those that aren't familiar, very, very competitive Division III conference. They probably traditionally won maybe by Dickinson or Gettysburg, and so to do that in his first year there, as Evie and I were talking with some of the other club directors, we thought it would be great for Gary because he's building a great program. So Coach Mercandante is going to come up and talk a lot about the Division III process. Let's give it up for Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Just want to thank everybody involved with putting this on. I'm listening to Coach here, and looking back on my recruiting process, we barely had club teams, let alone this. So I think just being here in this room, just educating yourself on this process, you're taking the right steps. And very fortunate to be around guys like Evie and Coach Law that are doing an incredible job in this area with their club teams. And again, just educating everybody. So thank you for having me. My goal tonight is 3 things. One is just to break down Division III a little bit, help everybody in the room take ownership of their recruiting process. That's my main goal. I think right now recruiting it's crazy, it's overwhelming, but I think Coach summed it up best. At the end there, you want to enjoy that ride, you want to enjoy the process, and I think the more you take ownership of it, the more you know, the more you are going to be able to enjoy that ride. And in doing so, hopefully everybody between Coach and I can take 1, 2, 3 things away tonight that you can go home and start doing. Especially because you are in the middle of November recruiting. Maybe some of the emails, some of the tips that you get tonight that hopefully you can do to get yourself in front of the coaches that you want to be seen by. First thing, just to kick off, last spring there were 72 Division I teams and 246 Division III teams. So Division III, in terms of size, you have about 3.5 times the size, Division I and Division II. So in terms of opportunities, there's a ton of opportunities out there. I think that's something important to know for everybody. A lot of guys, they only see those top 10, top 15 teams, but there's a lot of roster spots out there. There are a lot of homes for you guys. It's a matter of just finding that fit. So I encourage you all to do your homework and do some of the things that we'll talk about. Things to know for Division III, some of the restrictions. I was joking with Coach Tambroni before we started. We don't have many. The majority of the things that he talked about in terms of Division I rules and restrictions, we have very few. In Division III, we don't have athletic scholarships. The first thing that I'll tell you is, and I'm always amazed at how many people sit in my office and ask this question, there are no secret Division III athletic scholarships, no matter how good you are. You can ask every D3 coach in the country, we don't have them. I wish there was some secret answer we all had, but we don't have it. It's against the rules. As an athlete, there is no athletic money. So with that, because of that, we don't have as many restrictions as Division I and Division II. We don't have dead periods. Our contact periods, we can contact you pretty much all the time. Emails, texts, calls. Whether you reach out to us, we reach out to you. And also the opportunities to play in front of Division III coaches are different as well. Right now in November recruiting, that's the period Coach talked about. There are also Division III showcases in October. There's a couple in December. So we have events specific to Division III that other divisions don't have. So if you're somebody who's starting to realize that you're a Division III athlete and that's somewhere you want to target, look into those events because there are other opportunities outside of those periods for Division I and Division II. What do we have? How am I going to afford a Division III school? The first one is your academic scholarships, your merit award. For everybody in this room, how many freshmen are in the room? A lot. Sophomores? Okay. Listen, especially you guys, but this goes for everybody. It literally pays to be a good student. Okay, I say this all the time, all right, when I'm doing recruiting talks. All right, in Division III with no athletic scholarships, if right now as a freshman you take this mindset and run with it, it may be the difference between you going to the Division III school you want to go to. Because you'll get a great academic scholarship and it will help you afford to go to that school. A lot of guys, and I admit it, I wasn't like this when I was a freshman or sophomore. Nobody told me this. I wasn't thinking that way. But if you start to do your research, what you'll realize is as expensive as higher education is getting right now across the board in all divisions, it's also very affordable if you're doing the right things now. Right? If you put yourself in a position to get that great merit award, which is a great starting point for most families. What else is there? How do we make up the rest of that? Your financial aid packages. So beyond those academic scholarships, you have your financial aid package. So your need-based grants from schools and then loans. And what Division III schools will do is they'll combine all of that and you'll get a bottom line number and that's where you're at. That's the way that process goes. So it's a little simpler, I think, at the Division III level. But again, I think for all of you guys, especially you younger guys, it's really important to know right now that that is something that will help you hopefully make that jump, get to the college or the university that you want to be at. The other thing that I think is important to know is you are going to go to a place like Ursinus or a Division III school because of you as a person and you as a student, not as a lacrosse player. Right? Lacrosse may be something that gets you there, you meet the coach, you get interested in the school, you fall in love with it, but ultimately in the end, you are getting accepted there as Gary Mercandante, as a person, as a student. So God forbid you get hurt when you're a junior, right? Maybe you hit your sophomore year and the demand is too much and you can't handle it. And the first thing you think about is, oh my God, if I stop playing, I'm gonna lose all that money and I gotta go home. That's not true. That's not the case. All right? You're getting into a Division III institution on your own merit. Lacrosse is the bonus. That's the privilege. That's the way I like to look at it. All right? I think regardless of division, that's the way you should look at it. But especially in Division III, you're going to get in there on your own merit. So it's something important to keep in mind. Playing restrictions. Something I always like to talk about is just the difference between divisions. For Division III, we're not a year-round lacrosse division. For us in the fall, we have 16 days total. 16 days, 15 practices, and then one tournament day where we can play a very specific 120 minutes of lacrosse. I don't know how the NCAA came up with that, but all right, 120 minutes. That's all we're allowed. And something that we talk about a lot in recruiting and when our freshmen get to college is that's a lot different. All of you guys are in a position right now where the majority of you are playing year-round lacrosse. You go from fall ball, indoor box, your spring seasons, then you hit summer ball through club teams. I mean, you're year-round players. And then you get to a place like Ursinus, and there's only 16 days where you can actually be on the field with me in the fall semester. Other than that, sure, you're strength and conditioning, you're doing all those things on your own, but most of the ownership falls on you as a player and our teams. Because we don't get to see our guys in a helmet until February 1st in the Centennial Conference. So you look at how much time you're actually wearing a helmet, it's not a lot. You know, for our guys, it's 3 months, 3.5 months max that they're actually wearing a helmet throughout the year. So something to keep in mind in terms of just the demand, the actual amount of play. Start to educate yourselves on what's the difference, what do I want specifically, and what's the best environment for me. As we move into just the next piece, you know, my biggest thing, and Coach touched on it a lot, but I just want to make sure everybody knows, no matter where you go, what level, 1, 2, 3, MCLA, whatever it is, the demand is going to be a lot. Right? It's going to be a great experience, but the sacrifice is going to be the same. The work is going to be there, right? It's not going to just not exist in Division III and be there in D1, right? It's going to be the same across the board, and everybody in this room wants to play. And I think for you guys, you know, wanting to take that next step, the biggest piece of it is, you know, what I want to talk about next is just owning this process. Take ownership of the recruiting process to ultimately get to that dream school, to the place you want to be at. When I meet with recruits, I always end those meetings talking with players and families about the fact that everything we just talked about, you know, for the past 45 minutes sitting in my office, they're going to do, right? Not me, not mom, not dad, not coach, right? That student is going to do. And I think a lot of times, guys just in this process get wrapped up in everything and they forget that, right? The strength and conditioning, going to class, going abroad, doing internships, right? All of the things that you're going to do as a student athlete in your 4 years of college that you're going to be challenged with, you're the one that's going to do it. And I think if you keep that in the back of your mind, that's going to help you with the decisions that you're going to make in the recruiting process. And the goal of all that is to ultimately help you end up at a place that you want to be, not everybody else. Because if you go to a college for the wrong reasons, all the stuff that we're talking about tonight is going to be really tough to do, because you don't want to be there. But if you go through the process and you find a place that fits you best, you're going to be great there. Because you care about it, you're invested in it, they're invested in you, it's what you believe in. And you're going to go to a place where ultimately your goal is to leave there and have it be better than it was when you got there. Right? So leave that in the back of your mind. When you guys leave here tonight, think about that. Let that drive your process. Let that drive your decision making. Some of my key steps just to help you take ownership of this process. The first one is the dream list. I think these are really common nowadays, especially with club teams. It's something we hear a lot. Guys making their dream lists. And I think these are good and bad. Right? They're good, I think, if you're honest with yourself. If you have a club coach and you can ask honestly, hey, where am I at? You know, what? Sure, these are the schools that, you know, are the top 20 schools, but where do I realistically fit? You know, and they help you develop that list. But if you're not honest with yourself, you end up putting a list together of schools that not only athletically, but maybe don't even fit you academically. I'm always surprised when, you know, we reach out to a recruit and he gives me a major that he says is 100% what he wants to do. He's wanted to do it his whole life. I said, well, we don't have that. And then he gives me the 7 schools that he's looking at, and I know for a fact that none of them have that either. Right? And I don't think he realizes that yet. Right? So I think the list he put together was just based on lacrosse and not based on his major. Right? It's got to include both the academics and the athletics to make sure that that's a realistic list for you, and it's a great starting point. So start to think about those things when you're going through that. Communication. I think communication is one of the biggest things. Coach touched on a lot of this, so I'm going to try not to overlap too much. But my first one is just phone etiquette, phone calls. You know, I think in the social media era, we joke about it all the time, and I'm not that old, I don't think. But you know, guys are comfortable sending a message through Instagram or Twitter. They're comfortable texting, but they can't pick up the phone. Right? All the dads, moms in here are laughing because they know I'm right. Right? It's amazing. And what you got to think about is, we're going to call you. And if myself, Coach Tambroni, if we have 8 calls to make on a Tuesday night before we get home to our families, and the first one we make, there's no voicemail, right? You get that horrible, dreaded message, there's no voicemail, click, and it just hangs up. Well, now I have a decision. Do I want to move on to the next call? Or do I want to follow up with a text and try to set up a phone call and maybe send an email, right? Most likely I'm going to go on to the next guy. So just because of something simple like that, or your voicemail's full because you never check it, right? Something else like that, right? Little things like that are ways that you may get an opportunity or you may miss it. And it's something I think, again, guys don't really think about. So if you guys are one of those guys that are sitting in the audience right now with no voicemail, go make one. 10-second professional voicemail, name, leave a message, I'll get right back to you. If your voice box is full, clear it out. Because if the coach calls you tonight, you want to pick it up. All right? Emailing one-on-one. I think as we go to these tournaments, we sit on these sidelines, we get the binders, we get the info, right? One of my favorite things that I see is, we have a player we like, and I send him an email that night, and as I'm sending the email, I realize it says, SusieJones26@hotmail.com. I'm like, well, that's definitely not Jeff. There's no way that's it. Okay? And the immediate response I get, is from mom, and it takes 3 more steps to get there. Or it's a parent's work email. I had one of these last week. It's a parent's work email, and I get the response of, I'm out of the office for the next 2 weeks, I'll get back to you when I return. Well, in the next 2 weeks, my staff and I may send 80 emails, and we may hear back from half those kids. So that one email that's sitting in mom's mailbox at work, he's not going to get for 2 weeks. Maybe he misses that opportunity. So I encourage all of you guys, go home, and if you don't have this, do it. Go on Google, it's free, make a Gmail account with your first, last name, and your year. Gary Merc 2021. Put that in all the binders. Give that to your club coaches. The simpler, the better, right? Because we go through a lot of these. And the easier you can make the process for us, the easier it's going to be for you guys. Coach touched on this a little bit, but just email mistakes. I laughed when he talked about this because it happens all the time, but you would be shocked at how many mass emails we get, and also the information in those emails. Getting an email addressed to another coach. I got one the other day that simply said Ursinus University. It had my name in it, but we're Ursinus College. And that may not seem like a big deal, but I know that was an email that he just filled and sent to a lot of guys. Another one that you'll see is congrats on a great year last year, and you had a terrible season. You had a losing season. Congrats on your championship. That wasn't us. You get those too. So it's put the time in. I'm going to read a personal email that introduces yourself, lets us know who you are, a couple of your accolades, and your interested major, and your highlight rate that Coach talked about. That's all we need. We're going to do the research, we'll look into. That will catch my eye. But if I open that email and in the send line, there's 300 coaches from all divisions, probably not. Right? We get a lot of those. So take the time, right? Own the process. Right? It's a little more tedious, it takes a little more time, but it's going to be worth it. You're going to catch the eye of the coach because you took an extra 5 minutes to look up the college, get the name right, and get their name right. It goes a really long way. Highlight videos, another big one. I'm not gonna talk about the same stuff as Coach. One thing that I will mention is the contents of the film. Right? For some reason nowadays, for all you defensemen in the room, you guys can listen to this one. All the highlight films we get of defenders are them clearing the ball. I don't get it. Right? I know it's a fast game, and I know your stick skills are important, but we've got highlight films of talented defenders. And there is not a single second of a 3-minute film of them actually playing defense. Right? So if you're going to pay a company to do this, or mom or dad are going to help you, put in that film what you want us to notice. If you're a close defender, I want to see you close the game. I want to see you slide. I want to see you play team defense. I don't want to see a whole game, but I want to see you actually play your position. Right? Those things are the things, again, a lot of the times where we watch a film like that, of you just clearing the ball, and we have no idea if you're actually a good defenseman. And you may be a great one. That's the toughest part. Right? So give us something that shows us what you think are your best qualities, and then we're going to follow up and go out and see you play. All right? Ask your coaches, high school and club coaches, to help you out to pick those clips. The shorter the better, like Coach said. And you know, for me, you know, I love those. I think the 3-minute films are great. No full game films. I mean, you figure if we get 1,000 of those a year, we just can't watch all those game films. So, you know, 2 to 3 minutes is perfect. Make sure it highlights what you want. The next one is just be available. It's amazing to me how many times this has happened in the past year. We reach out to a student athlete who we really like. He doesn't pick up the phone, and he texts me back and says, "Hey coach, thanks for the message. Is it okay if we schedule a call in 2 weeks on Tuesday at 4 p.m.? I'm thinking to myself, geez, I have 2 little kids. Like, is he that busy? You know, does he really have that much going on? And I don't think that student realizes that he's not the only one that we're going to call that. Right? This goes for every college in the country. It's all the same, right? We're all recruiting a lot of different players. And so try not to be too busy. If you can't answer the phone that night because you're doing your homework, shoot coach a text back and just say, "Hey coach, you know, I have some time tomorrow. I'd love to speak with you then." Great. Right? But don't be too busy that it takes 2 to 3 weeks. The last one is, you know, go home and Google yourself. You know, social media, everything online. Right? Make sure that your body of work reflects what you want it to. Your Instagram account, your Twitter account, right? When we get an email from a guy, we Google. It's one of the first things we do. Ideally, you know, Gary Mercandante Lacrosse's highlight film pops up on YouTube, but there's always a couple of other things below that, right? Maybe it's your Twitter account. You never know what it's going to be. Go home and do that tonight. See what comes up. Hopefully it's just your highlight video. But if it's something else, start to think about that. You don't want to get to a point where something that maybe you put on an Instagram account that a coach sees becomes the reason why they don't want to recruit you. Right? Make sure that's a great reflection of who you want to be, and that will only help you down the road. The last thing is just as you go into tournaments, you know, what do we look for? You know, my biggest thing is just do the little things. You know, the way we coach at Ursinus is also the way I recruit. I think in attacking in the room, think about this. You know, in a 60-minute game, you maybe have the ball in your stick for 4 minutes. Right? Defenseman, you may cover the ball one-on-one for 3 minutes. So what happens the other 95% of that game? What are all the little things that you do, all the intangibles that you do to make you a great player? The majority of which are tough to put on a highlight film. But when you're at a recruiting event this weekend, when you're at a recruiting event in the summer, think about those things. Because those are the things that we look for. All those little things, all those things that help win games, help make you a great teammate. Some examples, body language. When we're sitting in our chairs, freezing our butts off in November, right, watching you guys play, body language, that's a big one. What does your body language communicate to your teammates, to your coaches? Hustle. How do you handle yourself on the field? Are you constantly in full gear, or is it just when it's convenient for you? Do you chase out shots? Do you ride? Do you celebrate with your teammates? It sounds so simple, but it's one of my favorite things. Right? Some of the club teams I watch, I know that every time they score a goal, I call it Celebrator 6. Right? All 6 of those guys on that offense all go up to each other and celebrate together. It's one of my favorite things. Right? Or are you a me guy, and you score, throw your hand up and take off and just go to the box. Right? You don't care who fed you the ball, you don't care how it got there. Right? Coaches notice that stuff. The other one is, you know, and again, something simple, but where are you in the huddle? You know, when you're standing in the huddle, you know, where are you? Are you on the outskirts of the huddle? Are you right in front of Coach Law, looking him in the eye, listening to what he says at the quarter so you're ready for the next rep you get? Those are things that we notice. Right? Keep in mind that coaches, we're sitting on the sideline. We're not in a stadium, we're not in the stands. A lot of the times we're 5 feet from you. Right? And I don't think that's something that a lot of guys think about when they're in these events and they're in the heat of the moment, but it's why these little things I think are so important. Two examples. Last weekend I was at a tournament. Two examples I want to point out just to kind of highlight the little things. And this is my last thing here. A negative. So there was an extremely talented player. I saw him in the first 5 minutes, marked him as a 4-star kid for us. This kid's legit. He's a really good player. I'm looking forward to watching more of him in the next 30 minutes. 5 minutes later, his team gets a penalty. He comes running by the box where I'm sitting, right past the official, drops some not nice words to him, and asks him if it's his first time officiating a game. Probably not a good decision ever, but right, that official immediately turns around, throws another flag, locks him in the penalty box for 2 minutes. Right, shortly thereafter, he gets released. He goes back on the field. He's unhappy, clearly. He wrecks a kid. High hit, 2 minutes, locked in, right back in the box. His team's down 4 goals. And all he's doing is running his mouth, across the mouth. Right? That's not a team guy. I don't care that he's a 4-star guy. Right? For me, that's a guy that's going to hurt our culture and hurt our team more than help it. Right? We don't want to just recruit talented players. We want to recruit great people. We want to recruit hard workers, great teammates. Guys are going to make us a better program across the board with what they do as people, as students, and as athletes. Right? When you handle yourself like that, it comes off the wrong way. Now, for all I know, he may be a great kid. Right? But in the moment when I watched him for those 30 minutes, not a good impression. A positive. Right? That same game, another kid that I liked. Right? He was a 3-star for me. He was a guy that said, this kid has a lot of potential. I want to see him play a couple more times this fall. Right? That same kid, after the game, his whole team leaves the field. Everybody's gone while games are switching over, and one of the moms from the team is cleaning up all the water bottles on the sideline. Right? That kid comes back, and he cleans up every single bottle with her while all the college coaches are watching. I love it. I bumped him up. Right? Should it matter? Are those the things you're thinking about at the time? Probably not. But that stuff goes a long way. You know, for me, I watched a talented guy who has a really high ceiling do a great thing outside of the game. That's somebody I want to talk to more. You know, so again, going back to doing the little things, challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone. Challenge yourself to focus more on that stuff. Right? Do the little things really well and also give 100% on the field. If you're doing that, we're going to notice. Coaches are going to notice. Right? We want to see you be a great leader. We want to see you do all these things. And you never know, right, who's watching, and like Coach talked about, you know, when that opportunity is going to happen. It may only be one run. It may only be a 20-minute game that I get to see you. But make sure in those 20 minutes, every coach watching you knows exactly who you are, what your effort looks like, how you play, what you give, the type of person you are. You can do all that with a helmet on, right? So challenge yourselves to do that every chance you get to put the helmet on, and there's no question, you'll get noticed, right? You'll get an opportunity, and then hopefully you can follow through with some of these things and some of the things that Coach talked about, you know, to get your foot in the door and really get that process ramped up. In general, you know, again, like I talked about, you know, I think this process, and you know, it's something that Coach talked about at the end too. Make it fun. It's so much crazier than when I went through this as a player, and I get it. You know, we do it every day, and you know, it's the type of thing where I feel for you guys. I feel for the parents. I feel for the players. It's an overwhelming process, but you're taking the right steps sitting here. Educate yourselves. Take advantage of the fact that you're playing with the club teams, right, that are represented in this room. Right? This is one of the best, I think, areas in the country for club lacrosse and high school lacrosse. Right? There are a lot of great people that want this process to go well for you, but you have to be proactive. Take ownership of it. Attack that process the same way you do as a player. And if you do that, I think ultimately you're going to find a home that's the right fit for you. Right? Not for anybody else, but for you. And that'll mean that you'll have an incredible experience. Right? And just know that your decision where you end up, that's not a 4-year decision, that's a life decision. Right? That's the other thing. You know, where you end up going, the coach you play for, the institution you go to, right? That's a place you're going to be a part of, hopefully, for the rest of your life, well beyond your 4 years there. So the more you do your homework, the more you own the process, I think the better you're going to be, not just for that time, but again, well beyond that as well. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you.
Do we have any questions for either Coach Tambroni, Coach Mark, anything that is looming, things that you guys have talked about as families that myths that we can dispel. Any questions? Hands? Coach?
Coach Tambroni, when you were running through to run your own race, you listed goalies and face-offs. Can you maybe add a little more about that? Thank you.
Yeah, you know, I apologize for going over there. And this is a tough one because, you know, the race is definitely different for the specialty positions. And, you know, there's just one. So I would say that that's a completely different category. And if you're in that category, if you're going to face-off guys, certainly timing is of the essence. I would never suggest to rush your decision, but I would just say this, you probably want to be a little bit better prepared going into some of the recruiting process than other positions because you just don't have the luxury. I think the reality of it is you just don't have the luxury of the same amount of opportunities. You know, for us in a given year, we'll probably recruit around 11 or 12 guys per year. We don't always take a goal, we don't always take a face-off, but let's just say we did take one in any given year. You definitely want to be a little bit more proactive and the fortunate or unfortunate thing about that, and I think this is just the reality, if you play one of those positions, you may be in a position, and if it is presented to you in one of those positions to choose a school, it may be a little bit more urgent. At the same time, you can always step back if it's not for you, but I would be prepared for those positions to just, you're going to run your own race, but you're probably going to have to run a little faster than maybe some of the other positions because of the limited opportunities. I would say that's probably the best way I could phrase that.
Other questions?
So first off, this is fantastic, great insight. In terms of, you know, you talk about the recruiting, you know, pushing back, right, which you like and what the coaches seem to like. How is your time when you're looking at kids now, tournaments and high school? What does that balance look like between looking at sophomores versus looking at juniors? You're sort of filling your roster now, right, with juniors, but to what extent are you spending time looking at the sophomores? What does that balance look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had a little conversation about it. I would say every school is probably a little bit different. Looking between Gary and myself, and we're probably going to be much different in terms of that. So I was thinking a lot of it probably depends on what level you're looking at. The prospect camps are probably going to start up if they haven't done so already. I mean, I know that we're going to have one in January for the 22s. And I'd say that we got into this position because of this. You finish your class, if you're a school, you finish your class, and then you move on to the next class. And that's exactly what happens. So you finish your junior class, and you know, well, I'm done with that. I'm either going to sit around and wait, or I'm going to go into the next class, the sophomore class, get a head start. We're in a competitive world. And the coaches are like, well, I'm going to be the first one in the sophomore class, and I'm going to do that. And they start calling sophomores, and they would finish that class. I'm going to run to the freshmen and be the first person to talk to them. The beauty is that you can just watch them, but I would say that you have some time now. I mean, you're going to, I would be selective, and I don't want to overstep, but I mean, you just want to be selective and just make sure you have your expectations met. I mean, at some of these tournaments where there's college coaches, the number of college coaches sitting on the sidelines for the sophomores last year or 2 years ago, maybe you'd see 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 this year. You may not see any, and that's the reality until next summer. For us in particular, I know next summer will be our big year to start 22s, and then the winter 23s.
Yeah, for Division III, I definitely think it's different. I mean, we have the majority of your Division III schools, you know, we're really looking at juniors during this period. I mean, for us, we're evaluating juniors. We're really just starting that process. You know, and I think it depends on the program too. You know, your high-level programs in Division III, or you know, who had great years, are going to finish their 20s, for example, much sooner than others that may be recruiting them into March, you know, who can't move on to juniors yet. So it really depends on the program too. That's something I would look into and advise players on is which program is it. They're probably much further ahead, so they may want to see you as a junior and maybe start watching, you know, sophomore videos of
Other questions?
Do you have a division called scouts? Do you have scouts at all tournaments, or you only don't do tournaments to look at certain kids that will be in front of your face?
For us, we're very limited, I think, overall in Division III in terms of staff. So, just to kind of answer that initially, in terms of staff size, with us, we have 3 coaches total, myself and 2 others. So on any given weekend in the summer, or any given week, if there's a day where there's 6 events, we can't actually be everywhere. So what we do is just try to develop a list, to your question, of who are the student athletes that have reached out to us that we want to evaluate. Where are they going to be first and foremost? What are the events that we're going to get the most out of, not just to see them, but maybe that have the club teams that we would like to see. And that's how we really try to navigate that process. I think it's difficult for all Division III programs just because of staff size, but that's how we go through it. So the more you guys reach out and let us know where you're going to be, the more helpful it is for us to then plan out, hey, we want to make sure we see Joey at tournament X. That's a good way to do it.
So just to follow up on that, so just if you have a good club team, you're not just going to watch that club team play because you know they have players that come out of there.
We definitely are, yes. That's part of it too. I think it's 2 parts. We have our student athletes that we go and watch at that tournament on a watch list that we bring, but I know that I'm going to go watch next. That's a team that I know I'm going to go see at the tournament. If I'm by myself and there's 50 teams that day, we have to be pretty strategic on how are we going to get around for the next 6 hours. We don't want to just see you play for 10 minutes. Hopefully I can see a full game or at least half of it. So we'll make sure we see the club teams that we know are very successful, that have great players, or that we as a program have a great pipeline to. That's part of it as well. But then we'll also make sure that we see the players that have reached out to us on that list.
I'm going to just add to that because this is one of those things when it comes to expectations. I mean, the lacrosse world, we have outgrown this. So I would just say there's probably some tournaments that you go to and you never see a college coach, and that's possible. We probably just need to get a handle on kind of what we're doing. There's just way too many tournaments. In Division I, you have 3 paid coaches. So you can send 3 coaches out on the road. But there are a lot of times that institutions' names or logos will be put on events when our director of ops or our volunteer coaches who are not technically, they're not allowed, not technically, they're just not allowed to recruit or evaluate, but they could be there walking around. You just want to know what you're getting when you're going into these. You want to go to reputable tournaments, you want to be a part of reputable club teams, but the reality is there's so many club teams and so many tournaments right now, and each team, each Division I has 3 coaches. You just can't be everywhere at any time, and when there's just too many games and too many things going on. So those as parents, and I say this as a parent and as a coach, that's frustrating sometimes. You spend a weekend, spend money, get there, and you can go through the entire weekend, and there's a chance that you will not see a college coach the entire weekend, and that's possible. That's why I would just say, just make sure that the expectations of the clubs that you partner with are being met. Like, what is the expectation? And maybe they tell you something you don't like, but if that's the reality, then you're going to have to invest in it and just live with it. Either the club team or the tournament that you're going to.
Do the tournaments know in advance if there's going to be certain schools there watching?
The majority of them will do a good job. The reputable ones will list who's going to be there. The other side of it, if there's some schools that you want to look at, hey, I noticed that Penn State is speaking. Can you tell me which coach is going to be there? Because sometimes someone will say, hey, I hear you're going to this tournament, and I was like, I am. And I didn't know that we were going to be there. None of our staff is going to be there, and somebody will put that up there to attract your dollar to be there, and it's completely false. Again, it's reputable club teams at reputable tournaments will put up those logos, and then even better, they'll put up the names of the ones that are going to be there, so that you know that the college coaches who can actually evaluate are going to be there to do the job that you're paying for, which is to have your son or that club team evaluated. And that's something that we just need to clean up. We need to clean up as coaches in all divisions and in our club teams. We need to do a better job of this because we're inaccurately, as a parent, this frustrates me, and as a coach it does, we're inaccurately presenting for you, the consumer, who's going to be there, what you're going to get out of it, and sometimes it's just downright false. So that's why I just say, just have conversations and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And if you agree with it, then it's on both of you, the club coaches and the parents, to just do what you think is right.
team one is only at November tournaments?
We're not in October. We are only at November and all summer.
And summer tournaments?
And we can watch people play in the springtime. Division III is all year long, 12 months, no time off. Jeez. It's not working.
So for training, like emailing coaches, would you like to see all of the staff, like strength and conditioning and just like everyone involved with the lacrosse team copied on that email? Or would you just prefer that the three main coaches?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say if you have the coaches on there, I would probably eliminate the strength coach, but I would put every coach on there because you just never know which one is in charge. Sometimes we have recruiting coordinators or somebody will be in better charge. So I mean, my assistants are better than I at coordinating those things. So I'd say your chances of having that stick, put every one of them on there. Susan, agree?
Anyone else? Other questions? We're gonna call Eric from the Headstrong. He wanted an opportunity